Mm.
But but I think you're assuming here that the group that initially, right, bears or bore the truth, right, that will somehow remain constant, right?
Yeah, that is
Again,
the assumption.
when you look at Israel, at some point, they became unfaithful, right? They became
True.
the bad bearers of God's truth, right? In some sense, right?
Yeah.
Because of their unfaithfulness to God. So it might have been the case that the immediate inheritor of the apostolic church is the Catholic Church, right? But that does not mean, right, that when you actually look at the history of the Catholic Church, right, that it actually made lots of bad decisions as a
Mm.
group,
Yeah.
right? It made a lot of bad decisions historically, and at some point, probably by the
Can
time you
you?
get to say again.
I mean, just for context, what's as an example,
No,
like
no.
the
So
like.
bad decisions about, I don't know, uh, the persecution of, I don't know, Galileo, Copernicus, whatever, right?
Okay.
Or Giordano Bruno, right? The executions of some of the heretics that were probably not really heretics or something like that. So they make those kind of bad decisions. Or, for example, introducing, I don't know, probably teachings in the church that probably do not really have um, adequate theological basis, right? Such as the ascension of Mary, right? Or probably, the doctrine of transubstantiation or something like that,
Sure.
right?
Unless it is true.
Yeah, yeah, unless it's true. I'm not saying that they're false, but
Sure,
I'm
sure.
simply saying that those can be argued that there must be something wrong. There might be something wrong about those kind of decisions that the church made, right?
Right.
The decision of Pope John Paul XII to actually, in some sense, allow Catholics to accept evolution, but he himself rejected, right? And he didn't really like the theory of evolution. And then Pope John Paul II, I think we discussed this before, right?
Right. Yeah.
Approving, claiming that evolution is not a theory anymore. Although he might not be saying that in his official capacity, but in his lecture, right, he actually opposed, right, what Pope Pius XII said, right, in 1950, right. So it's not so it's not like a clean history, right, for the Roman Catholic Church. And again, I always refer to the Catholic Church as the mother church, right? Because I really do think that they are the immediate inheritors of the apostolic church, right? So I don't deny that. But what I deny is that probably it's not clear whether they were really faithful bearers of the truth the whole time, right?
Yeah.
So that's probably, and probably at some point, um, you know, uh, um, there were decisions that were made that at some point discredit the spiritual competence of the church as a whole, right? To really be the bearer of the church, and I think that's one of the objections, right, from the standpoint of Luther,
Right.
right?
Sure.
Okay, so
Yeah.
so yeah, so that's um, again, this is something I can't prove, right? That it's possible that it must be the original bearer of the God's truth after the apostles, but it doesn't mean, right, that somehow the being the truth bearer continues, right, within that institution.
Right.
It can be the case that it must have been
Yeah.
transferred to some other group, right? Who knows?
Right.
Uh,
So I think the job of a Catholic apologist, and I'm not by any means any
uh,
of the anywhere close to the best of the Catholic apologists out there.
mhm.
There's tons of DVDs, tons of books out there,
Yeah.
where you're trying to defend, the assumptions that I was referring to earlier, or
Hmm.
at least the commitments that we make as a Roman Catholic.
Hmm.
If we start off with the belief that the Church is the infallible, and not and you have to understand what are the limits of infallibility, right? Not
Yeah.
every jot and tittle that comes out of the mouth of Francis, thank God,
Yeah.
is not it's not the gospel truth of God.
Mhm.
It's not the Pake Mama craziness that happened last year, it's proof of that.
Mm.
Okay, but you have to understand it from within the family, right? I've used that phrase before, that word before, to understand what infallibility means, not just coming from the outside thinking everything that the Pope says is correct. It's not. So, and we never taught that, and the Catholics have never taught that everything that the Pope even writes is infallible. So, if we start off with if we so again, the job of the apologist is to defend in those examples where there are objections, right? So the burning of Bruno, the censorship of Galileo, if you examine any of those cases, I think an example, a response could be, well, where is the teaching? Where is there a teaching that's either false or true in the activity, the actual action of burning Bruno as a heretic? You might have to examine the case a little bit deeper. Like, what part of that is preserving the truth of a claim one way or another? If it has to do with cosmology, right, which I think was the issue at hand for Bruno and for Galileo, some apologists have defended the idea that they were not condemned for teaching heliocentrism, but that they were teaching that there are errors in the Bible, and that would be a doctrinal error, right? So whether or not that it's right to burn somebody at the stake for that reason, I think that's to be debated, right? I mean, there are executions in the Old Testament, New Testament for
but that might not be,
ecclesiastical reasons.
given our current moral sensibilities. I don't know if that should be open for debate, right? It looks like,
well, I mean, today, sure,
yeah.
Mm-hmm. In the times, that was common, right? That was just the way things were, and it whether it's right or wrong. I mean, it's just even in secular culture, right? You watch some sitcoms in the '90s, and you're like, I don't know, that's not going to fly today.
Yeah.
But should they be canceled? I mean, should those comedians be canceled for something they did that was culturally okay back in the day? So yeah, I mean, even the current Pope, we were talking about, just contrasting him with previous popes. He changed the Catechism of the Catholic Church to talk about the immorality of executions, of capital punishment. But is it really immoral, capital punishment? That's his opinion. That is his opinion. But I think we can imagine a scenario where you're in a tiny little village or something like that, and you don't have government assistance or something, or whatever it is, or a tribe, and then you have this individual that for whatever reason murdered someone. I mean, is it necessarily wrong for the good of the community to ensure that person is not going to harm someone else if they don't have an infrastructure like we do of prisons and jails or whatever in the Western culture? I don't know. I think it's a little bit more, it depends, than to say it's intrinsically wrong to have capital punishment. But again, that would not be a official teaching of like the Catholic Church. So there's room for debate one way or another.
Yeah. But again, those problems in the 1500s, right, with the Bruno, Galileo, Copernicus, right? That also has a lot to do with Catholic Church allowing Aristotelian physics, right, to somehow frame, right, discussions about cosmology, and enshrining, right, Aristotelian physics and cosmology, right, as somehow it looks like it's like the teaching of the church.
Sure.
Okay, and so that they can be mistaken about those things, and those are major mistakes. right?
Mm.
Those are major mistakes, and I think there's a sense, at least coming from my own standpoint, that there's a sense that, at least what I observed, the way you were reasoning, that there's a sense that there's an attempt to somehow, at least the reasoning that you're giving seems to immunize the church, right, from um, severe objections or severe criticisms. That even that they can be criticized, but because they are the church, right, they continue to serve as the bearer of God's truth, right? So even
Yes.
though there were evidences in the past that they were severely politically corrupted, right? There were examples, historical examples of them being simply like culturally conditioned, right? When they make major decisions,
Hmm.
right? So there are so much limitations here. So again, the point I'm not, I have high respect for the Catholic Church. I think I say that. I'm not saying this to bash Catholicism.
Sure, no, that's
I'm
fine.
simply pointing out that that probably the Catholic Church might have, you know, at some point they must have probably ceased, right, to be the bearer of that truth. Probably it was transferred to some other groups in some sense, right? So yeah, I will let you have the last word. Okay, so I don't want you to feel that, and then I
Sure,
will
no, no
stop.
worries.
Uh-huh.
I think I found a solution.
Okay, go ahead.
It dawned on me. I think I was enlightened by God to
Mhm.
infallibly declare this statement. I think I can agree with doctrinal minimalism
Mhm.
within the Catholic Church.
Mhm. Okay.
And I kind of described it already, kind of by hinting at it.
Mhm.
Everything that the Catholic is to hold from a Catholic view is the official teachings of the Catholic Church, and they're not. It seems like a lot, but you know, um, catechisms and things like that. But the the we would say the essential teachings are found in those catechisms. Now, of course, I have 6,000 books, so obviously there are people trying to explain one paragraph in the catechism in an entire book
Mhm.
to try to delve deeper and try to grasp a greater understanding. But if even if you don't understand the attempts of modern theologians or popularizers of religion, even if you don't understand everything they're trying to explicate, if you boil it down to the catechism and you read that paragraph and it says, this is the Eucharist. What looks like bread, what looks like wine, has now become the actual flesh, body and blood, soul and divinity of Christ. You can find a paragraph in the catechism that says something along those lines. That's the truth of the Catholic faith on that particular doctrine. I have 17 other books that try to explain that. Forget it, doesn't matter.
Mhm.
The essentials is that paragraph or
Mhm.
3 sentences or whatever it may be, to believe. And if you believe that with faith, you're good to go. Move to the next doctrine, learn the next doctrine, learn the next,
Mhm.
right? So there is a sense of doctrinal minimalism within Catholicism, because everything that you're held to believe, and you don't have to believe everything to be saved. It's like if you're just trying to understand, what has been given to us in the gospel,
Mhm.
then you go to the catechisms. And then you can start off with a basic catechism, which is this thin, or you can, graduate to the second catechism, and the third catechism that it delves a little bit more and more deeper. But again, the point is that it's all aggregated in that kind of teaching tool to ensure there is, I'll use a different phrase, doctrinal homogeneity.
Mhm.
There is some consistency,
Mhm.
right? And you might have the Hans Kungs, you might have the whoever's teaching at Notre Dame, whatever. But if they are teaching something contrary to that essential definition, it's a nice theory, but it's not the Catholic Church's teaching, even though they're Catholic, even though they're theologians or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I can agree with doctrinal minimalism
Yeah.
within,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have to be the Catholic Church. I would agree with in theory, it doesn't have to be the Catholic Church. What I would agree with in principle is doctrinal minimalism, but I can't see how it could exist apart from believing that there is some institution, wherever it may be, that has its lineage, has its ties to the early apostles. And they recognized there were other groups, but what they were seeming to consistently say is, don't go off to those other groups. They're teaching doctrines that are tickling your ears. That's in the Bible, right? But they will lead you to destruction. Stick to what we've taught you. The Catholic Church believes it's that church, but all I'm trying to say is, I believe that there is that one group that is blessed by God with the authority of Christ, with the authority of God, to continuously teach without error. Without it has to, otherwise it's never right. And find that church, wherever that church, it might be the Orthodox Church, it might be the Coptic Church, it might be the Catholic Church, or who knows. But that is where that's where I feel like that's where I feel the most safe, is finding what that church is. And obviously I believe it's the Catholic Church, but I'm just saying, otherwise, who knows? And who decides what is the bare minimum if there isn't some institution that actually does have that authority?
Yeah. But I think the barest minimum is just, that's why, what I do is I'm proposing it, right? And then the discussions can occur, right? In analyzing and evaluating that, whether that really qualifies as the barest minimum, right? So, but yeah, so I think we did it in like an hour and 30 minutes. That's probably long.
We solved all 2,000 years of fighting in history in 1 hour.
So that tells you that doctrinal minimalism is the best. I'm just kidding.
I agree. I mean, I'm just applying it to Catholicism. I think it makes sense. Right? There's all sorts of opinions, but you just boil it down to what are the essentials. But we would say the essentials are more than just your one paragraph. Our essentials is that 3,000-page book.
Actually, what I have is just one sentence.
It seemed like a whole paragraph, but it's
I was just.
Or somebody might say it's the Apostles' Creed.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's actually
12 articles, the 12 articles of the Apostles' Creed. See, I mentioned this last week. Every Catholic catechism that is official is structured to cover the Apostles' Creed, the Our Father, and the sacraments, right? And that's how they structure their catechisms. What are the truths that we can tease out of the claims in those ancient texts?
Yeah. So that's this is exciting conversations. I hope you guys enjoyed it in the same way we enjoyed it. It's hard to stop when you're talking about theological issues, and if you're like a theological nerd like Laurence and I, right? And then it's hard to stop. But we're gonna stop right here because I think we've been talking for about an hour and a half. And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Share it, discuss it with other people, and I hope that it will bless you, not just intellectually, but spiritually as well. Okay? So again, thank you. God bless you. Goodbye.